everybody, this is Hope from Hopefully Cosplay, and we're going to do Clawhauser Makeup today. And I'm not really doing a tutorial, but I'm just gonna walk through it and show you guys how I put on my Clawhauser makeup. So the first thing is I put on some primer, and I just use the same, ooh, that's a shine, the same primer that I use for my makeup. Ooh, so much shine on that shiny bottle. It's just a hard candy longwear. You can get it at Walmart because I'm cheap. And then I don't put too much on there, and so this is just a very tiny amount. Spread it over my fingers. And I do go down my neck a little because the makeup goes down my neck a little. So I'm just gonna work it into the skin. And then there's going to be an edit cut here because I like to give that a minute to really kind of soak in my skin, get a little tacky. This stuff does tend to start feeling just a little tacky when you let it sit for a minute, which is nice. The makeup really sticks nicely to it, in my opinion. And then also I like to wash my hands because I don't like my hands feeling tacky. So edit right here. So this is dried in. It feels really nice. It's soft. Like I said, it's almost like a little tacky. But that's just how I like this makeup primer. So then my next step is eyeliner. I've just got some ELF eyeliner. And I'm actually going to tightline. If you don't like seeing people like poke at your eyes, look away. I'll let you know when to look back. For those of you that don't know, tightlining is when you actually put liner on the inside of your lash line. And I do this for Clawhauser because I like to reduce the amount of pink skin that's showing. Because it's very obvious once all of the rest of my skin is covered in whites and browns and black spots. It really shows up, and I don't really like that. So we're tightlining. My eyes are getting slightly watery, which they normally do. Okay, for anyone who looked away, you can look back now. I'm done touching my eyeballs. But you can see the difference, the very stark blackness around my eyes now, having them tight-lined. Okay, and I apologize, I've been sick not too long ago, so my sinuses are still a little crazy, but we're still gonna do this, because it's fun. And then the next thing, I'm going to start with the white face paint that goes around here. It's probably going to look really bad in this lighting. I tried turning the light down as far as it'll go. But yeah, we're gonna do it. So I use just regular artist paintbrushes for my my face painting brushes, and I'm just dipping in some water and in the paint. This is a water-based paint from Wolf FX. I really like their stuff, and they are cruelty-free, so I'm not gonna be able to talk much at this point because I have to keep my mouth closed, but let's do it. Okay, so it feels fairly dry now. I have to keep my lips pressed together like that because I have a very prominent chin. You probably saw me struggling to get paint all the way in the crease between my lip and my chin. It's just a thing. I have learned that if I don't keep my lips creased like that until it dries, I will have a line where the two pieces of my skin have touched and the paint did not stick to both sides. So one or both sides will have just a line of my pale skin showing through the stark white face paint. So this is what it is. The neck doesn't look that great today, but honestly, we're just gonna go with it at this point. There were a couple spots where the brush was a little too wet or not quite wet enough. For anyone still trying to use water-based face paints for the first or nearly the first time, just keep working at it. I've done this for years now. I think I've been doing Clawhauser for about 3 or 4 years, and I still struggle a bit. So yeah, you'll get there. It'll be fine, really. Just, you know, try everything. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the light brown color. And I am using a smaller brush now. It's good, but yeah, there we go. Again, just all the face paint is Wolf FX, so just so I don't have to keep saying that, because I really do love their stuff. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start filling in basically like the center of the face. So he has light brown down the center, and then sort of like the part of the cheek. So around here, like, goes from white to a light brown to a darker brown. So that's what we're going to start doing. I'm really noticing now that I've started adding around that the white's not quite even on both sides, but it'll do. This is really a makeup test. I've bought a new shade of brown. The darker brown is different from what I've used for the past few years, simply because that's what my local Halloween store had when I went to buy some more. So we're testing it out. Let's see how it looks. I've got a nice layer of the light brown over my eye, and I'm gonna have to keep my eye closed. Very similar to me having to keep my lips pressed together to keep my chin from smearing makeup. I'm gonna have to keep that closed for a bit while that dries. But I will just continue in the meantime to fill in my face. Just with one eyeball. And this is a bit of a tricky part. I'm trying to get all the way up under my lash line. Don't worry, I'm not touching my eyeball this time. Just getting all the way up in there. There we go. And now I'm going to try and like not look down too much for a minute or two. For the very similar reason, I have, you know, very prominent under eye. I don't like to call them bags, but they're bags. I think it's a facial feature, the same as my chin, but they're very prominent, so if I look down, they will do the same thing. They will crease, and it will cause a line in that makeup. So I'm going to try and tilt my head down until that's a little more dry. That is too much water on my brush. So not sure how much you can tell in the video. This part right here on the tip of my nose, I had a little too much water. It's a little runnier. It's not sticking to my skin quite as well. So I got a little more paint on the brush without getting any more water. And at this point, I'm basically just trying to work that in so it doesn't look too bad. Am I looking a little weird? I know. So one thing I love about Clawhauser is that this is fur that I'm painting on, so nothing really needs to be all that nice. If the lines between the colors are not perfectly straight or perfectly rounded, that's fine because it's organic. It's meant to be this way. Gives it a look of realism, that's what I like to tell myself. And the fact that it's fur also lets me get away with a lot of not blending this nearly as well as I probably technically should. When I first started doing Clawhauser, this is the first time I've ever done any kind of face paint. I was not all that great at it, and I try hard as I might, I could not get the brush marks to not show. So I decided that I would just brush on the paint in the direction that the fur would be going, and so any visible brush marks would just look like fur. And I still do that. I honestly haven't really tried much with not getting paint to show, brush streaks to show in my face paint. Oh shoot, that is too much water, too much water, too much water, too much water. I'm actually gonna dab at that a bit with my fingers. So it's gonna take a bit of that off, and then I'm also gonna wipe off my brush a little. Okay, there we go. So I was saying I because this is the main thing I do with face paint, I haven't really gone back and tried to hone my abilities to get brush strokes not to show, but it's a challenge that I am soon going to be undertaking. I'd really like to cosplay Not from Critical Role, so I'm going to be green. And we're going to see if I can make like actual skin looking face paint looks. We'll see how that goes. I just realized a minute ago that this left side was not quite as far out as the right, and as far out as I'd like it, because I can easily put the darker brown on top of the light brown if I go too far out, but if I don't go out far enough, then I've got pink spots that I have to go back and fill, and it's kind of difficult. It's a lot easier to just do a little extra now. Okay, I'm gonna give this a second to dry just a little bit, and also I've been using my hand to wipe on, because I did the one thing I always tell myself not to do, which is I started face paint without a paper towel in order to blot whenever you do have too much water. So I just blotted on my hand. I'm gonna go wash my hands and grab the paper towel. Be right back with a mostly dry but still really weird looking face. Okay, I'm back. Paper towel, clean hand. So yeah, paper towel is really nice to blot if you realize, whoops, I have too much water on my brush. And we're gonna go basically just fill in the rest of the area around my face. And like I had somewhat mentioned while doing the yellow, I like to actually layer it just a bit along the edge of the lighter brown. Partly this keeps from showing my skin, but also I like to do, again, you can already tell, a very kind of jagged look. This is fur, this is organic, this is growing. So I don't like it to be just a straight line. We're getting into my hair, but it doesn't really matter. My wig covers most of that. Also, because this is water-based face paint, it washes out really nicely. So honestly, a lot of what I'm doing around the forehead here, probably not necessary, but it just gives me a little peace of mind that regardless of how my wig sits, I'm not going to be showing any skin. and go onto the ear, because the one thing that does peek out from under my wig is the bottom of my ear. Which I realized the first 1 or 2 times that I did Clawhauser was that you could still see a very human ear peeking out of the bottom. So now I paint my ear. Meow? Oh, do you want to be a cat too? Bella's joining us apparently. And then there's also this bit of skin under here. Again, a lot of this does get covered by my wig, but not all of it. So I will generally just paint it. Meow, I know, you're a cat. Mommy's becoming a cat. So one thing I did just realize is that since I'm using a darker brown, I probably need to layer less than I'm used to with the prior shade that I was using. I don't necessarily hate it, but I really loved how the other 2 browns complemented each other. I'm more than happy to get your feedback as well, like which brown do you like better. Let's see what people think once we're done with these 2 looks. Maybe I can post a side by side. Wow. Say, I'm a cat. Yes. Say hi. Hi from Bella the cat. Do not jump on this table. Hey. No. Someone's being a brat. She's not getting attention. Okay. And then the other thing that I already was starting to do a bit on this side, and I'll need to come back and do it on this side. So I was trying to round out, very similar to how I just did, you know, really big rounds with the white. I'm trying to get an approximation of that roundness that Clawhauser has. So it's not even, but it's going to kind of do me looking at my reference images over here that I still look at every time that I do Clawhauser. I'm going to do just a bit up the nose and into the forehead. So I'm not loving the darker brown nearly as much for these little details like this. The other brown was much closer to the light brown, and so it was just a much less noticeable fade. Yeah, I slightly hate that, but let's see how it comes out. In fairness, I do usually hate this makeup every time that I'm halfway through it, so. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone for now. Let's do the next step, which is black. And so for this one, I have just the tiniest little brush that I like to use. And the first thing I tend to do is the eyebrows. Big, thick, dark eyebrows that I do not have, but Clawhauser does. This is also just a way to try and display a little bit of the masculinity. You know, it's a male character, but he's also very round and cute. So it's a weird balance to, oh, that was not great. Okay. I don't really talk when I'm doing this. My face moves when I talk, causes problems. There we go. Fixed it a little. Okay, we have some eyebrows. A lot more visible than my natural ones. I like it. Okay, and then he also has the little cat lines that come away from his eyes. And those are not even either. This is just not my day for getting this even, but it's a makeup test. It's, and I just got black like right in the center of my eye. It's okay. Anyway, we're lining. So the liner on the upper eyes is to, once again, get a little more of that cat eye look, like not the actual makeup cat eye, but I've learned that if I have these little underlined lines like he has, and I don't put a little bit of a heavier liner on the top of my eyes, then it looks a little strange. So do that. I've had the thoughts before of trying to also do a bit more liner on the underside of my eyes, but to be honest, I don't think I could do it well. So for now, at least, we're going to continue doing this. Sorry, I'm still waiting for these to completely dry, because if not, I'll open my eyes all the way and I will have black on my upper eyelid. So I'm just going to tilt my head back and look at you. I look really weird. But that's what cosplayers do, right? We look really weird. Alright, so then the next, we're going to start spotting. The first thing I like to do is, if you look closely in Zootopia, Clawhauser has a hidden Mickey in his spots. There's a spot that's shaped like a Mickey on the right side of his face. You can see it really well in the scene where he takes where Judy takes the soda bottle away from him. Right there. So I like to do a hidden Mickey. So there's that little hidden Mickey. And then after I've done the hidden Mickey, I like to do it first just to make sure I've got the space for it. I will generally start doing small spots right here along the last bit of the light brown. I will also, anytime that I come across a mole or a large bump on my skin, I turn it into a spot. Yay! So I like to go around and do the small spots first, because once I start doing larger spots, I like just start going a little crazy, and then I don't have any small spots left if I do it like that. I'm literally just poking with that top edge. Oh, that was too big. Too bad. Top edge of my brush. And so what I said just a minute ago about my bumps and my moles, that's why I have one spot that's always right there in the white, because that's a mole on my face. But it works because if you look, Clawhauser also has like one spot in the white on his fur, so that makes me happy. It doesn't show up too much in photography, but it does in person. You can still definitely tell through the white face paint. Alright, let's get into the darker brown and some bigger spots. So I'm first going to go through very similar, poking with the brush, but letting the brush bend a little bit more, pushing just a little bit more on the brush. So we've got some more paint getting onto my skin. And now that I've got some basic spots everywhere, let's go in and let's really like mess up some of these so that it looks like something more natural that you'd see on a big cat's fur. And for this, I'm laying the brush down a little bit against my skin rather than poking at it with the tip. So for some of these I'm creating a whole new spot, but a lot of them I'm actually, that turned out a little more phallic than I wanted. Let's smudge that out. For a lot of these I'm just going in and finding some of the spots I've already made and just kind of expanding them, making them, or even connecting two of them. And big misshapen spots like this is why the hidden Mickey really works on his skin, because he does have a bunch of these big spots that they're not perfectly rounded. Of course they're not. It's his fur. He's a cheetah. Okay. So yeah, I will say this makeup test is not turning out nearly as nice as I would usually have my makeup. But part of that is because I know it's a makeup test. And I also, as I mentioned, haven't been feeling all that great. Still recovering from being very sick. So this is what we got. It's mostly a test to see how those colors go together. I'm still reserving judgment at this point. So let's keep going. The last thing is the nose. I need a kitty cat nose. So for this, what I like to do is actually just use the curve of my nose and bring it forward and then try and like flatten it out across the front. And then between those two lines that I just drew, I'm gonna fill in the bottom of my nose. That looks so funny. Another quick warning, very similar to the touching of eyes, if you don't like seeing things go in people's nose, we're about to do that. So look away and I'll let you know when you can look back. So I am going to start with just the fleshy part, outer part of my nose. But what I have found over the years is that it's kind of difficult to get all of the skin color covered without just sticking the brush slightly in my nose like a gross child. But I wash these every time, so don't worry. These are the things we do for cosplay. We are a bunch of weirdos. See? And now my nose is a kitty nose. If you were looking away, you can look back now. We're done sticking things up my nose. Welcome to the glamorous life of cosplay. Okay, so that is actually it with the literal face paint. Next thing I'm going to do is I have black eyeliner. This is a separate black eyeliner that I used on my eyes. This is my eyeliner. This is my lip liner. It is technically an eyeliner, but I use it for my lips, and it is specifically for my lips that I don't cross the two. So this one is Makeup Forever, and it's their what do they call it? Aqua XL, and it's really nice. I actually originally bought this and some other colors as well for mermaiding, because it actually does hold up underwater. So that's why I like to use it for my lips. So one thing I will do, I'm going to try and flatten out the top lip to try and give more of a kitty lip rather than the cute little bow lip that we usually try and do for humans. So. I was trying to dip this in face paint. My brain is not working today, obviously. I did not have so many of the things I needed for this video. So it doesn't look even, but I think that's just because it's thicker on one side than the other. The other thing I'm going to do is draw the line from my nose to my mouth. My kitty nose to my kitty mouth. Okay, and then I could technically draw in the rest of my lip with a pencil, but I generally don't. I generally use So this is Wet n Wild Liquid Catsuit. And I really like this stuff. It stays really well. I hope they continue this line because I use the black for Clawhauser and I use the orange for Magikarp. So if they discontinue it, I'm gonna be very sad. Trying to get that to dry. I will say usually I did bring them with my stuff even. I would usually set this with some, I have some Bin 9, woo, glare, there we go. Some Bin 9 neutral set powder, and then also the Hard Candy Longwear setting spray. So I generally will tend to do the powder all over my face after the face paint is done, but before I get into the lip liner and lipstick. And then after that is when I would usually use the spray just as a final whoosh, you know, make sure it all stays. But again, this is a makeup test. I'm probably going to go take a shower right now and just wash it all off. I'm not setting it. But just to let you know, that's my usual process. And then the last thing, finally, is just some mascara. I have some ELF right here. I do use waterproof for Clawhauser because if I tear up at all, it'll be just black streaks down my face, which you can tell from anyone who saw me at Denver Comic Con after I met Matt Mercer. I walked away and I just started crying. He was so sweet. It was so great. I didn't expect to be able to see him because I was one of the last ones that they let into line to see him that day. And it was the last day of con, and yeah, I just freaked out. I completely lost it. It was great. Anyway, so yeah, just putting on some mascara, less to have like long lashes or thick lashes or anything, which again is part of the reason why I have this ELF. It's actually not my favorite mascara at all. I don't know that I'm gonna buy it again after I run out, but literally just because I have brown lashes and I have black liner all around my eyes, and I just think it looks better for my lashes to be black to match the liner. So that's what I do. So here we go. Here's the Clawhauser makeup look. I am going to go throw on the wig and see how we feel about this darker brown. Still on the fence, but let's finish the look. Okay, with the wig, this is what it looks like. I admittedly hate it less. The brown seems almost a little better. I'm still undecided. The cheapo in me is saying it's fine, it's good enough, leave it. The cosplayer in me is saying the other brown was really better. So let me guys know what you think. As far as did you like the other brown better or this one? I will put up a comparison and let you guys give some input on that. If there's any other videos you want to see, whether it's makeup videos, Clawhauser videos, you just let me know what you want to see, because I'm always looking for new fun things to do. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye!